On Tanabata, people write their wishes down on strips of paper and hang them in bamboo, hoping to be granted by Orihime and Hikoboshi. But what do these names refer to? Well, the stars Vega and Altair, stars which are 25 light years and 16 light years away from Earth respectively. So naturally that would mean that any information sent from Earth would take 25 years and 16 years to reach its respective star, right? That's the issue Haruhi brings up to her SOS Brigade. The brigade consists of 4 characters: Yuki Nagato, a human interface for a being known as the Data Overmind. It's a being capable of collecting and manipulating all forms of data since the beginning of the universe. Its interest in Haruhi lies in the fact that 3 years ago they noticed an explosion of new information stemming from Haruhi. They believe that this ability to create information out of nothing is an important step for them to advance as a species. Mikuru Asahina, the time traveler. In her future, a time quake was detected with Haruhi at the center of it, cutting off any sort of time travel prior to a certain date. That date? Sometime 3 years ago from the present. Itsuki Koizumi, an Esper. He and many other Espers awakened to their power 3 years ago and knew at the center of it would be Haruhi Suzumiya. And finally, Kyon, who is unabashedly, most certainly a normal human. On this day, Tanabata, when Asahina the time traveler asks Kyon for help, he hesitantly agrees, and finds himself 3 years in the past, on July 7th. As he wakes up and attempts to take in his surroundings, he tries to question Asahina on what it is they're going to be doing. Asahina, however, promptly falls asleep, and Kyon is then introduced to an adult version of Asahina, Asahina Big. This version of Asahina from even further in the future asks Kyon to assist the Haruhi of this time. So Kyon goes, and he finds her attempting to break into her school. The young Haruhi has a plan to draw a message on the school grounds and enlists Kyon's help in doing so. The message is later revealed to mean, "I am here." While working, Haruhi asks Kyon about aliens, time travelers, espers, and sliders, all of which Kyon agrees probably might exist. When asked for a name, Kyon responds that his name is John Smith. Haruhi takes note of his North High uniform at this time before leaving. With his task accomplished, Kyon goes to wake Asahina up, and in her dazed confusion realizes that her TPDD, her time-traveling device, is missing, leaving them stranded in this time. With their only option being to visit Nagato, they make their way to her apartment. Once there, Nagato synchronizes her data with the current Nagato self by using a card that she had given to Kyon. Nagato offers them a solution by freezing Kyon and Asahina in a time stasis for 3 years and releasing them when their appropriate time comes, and thus ends Kyon's time travel adventure in the Tanabata of 3 years ago. This proves to be an important date, as all 3 factions interested in Haruhi say that this is the exact date when they noticed an anomaly happen. It's such an important date and such a guaranteed event that even in the timeline where everything changes and Haruhi is no longer the Haruhi of the current world, this July 7th still happens. In fact, in his desperation, while Kyon is searching for the Haruhi of this different world, he finds her, and the only way to get her to listen is to reveal that he is John Smith. Haruhi explains that she remembers the Tanabata of that day, that July 7th 3 years ago, and remembers meeting John Smith twice. Later in this story, Kyon is forced to make a decision that sends him back in time to the July 7th once again. This time, Kyon finds himself alone in the literary club room and makes his way to a convenience store where he can determine the time and date. He discovers July 7th of 3 years ago at 8:30 p.m., roughly 30 minutes before he had awoken the first time he traveled back here. He realizes that both Asahina Big and Nagato are here in this time period, and they can potentially help him with his current problem. He goes to meet Asahina Big, fearing that she might be a time-sensitive encounter. When he arrives at the park, he sees a different version of himself talking to the small Asahina, and then later the big Asahina, before they set off on their adventure. As Asahina Big walks away, Kyon runs to intercept her. She mentions that his coming here was predetermined information. It's established. It must happen. And that there is a key bit of information that is currently missing from this time. That key bit of information would be Haruhi's second John Smith encounter. Asahina also reveals that Kyon's time plane troubles that he experienced all happened because of something that occurred on December 18th of his time, and that they would need Nagato's help to fix it. As they wait for the young Haruhi to finish her drawings at the schoolyard, Asahina, Big, and Kyon reminisce about their memories of the SOS Brigade. When the time comes, they follow Haruhi for a bit, and Kyon yells from the shadows that John Smith wishes her luck in making the world more exciting, fulfilling the second encounter. That objective completed, they make their way to Nagato's home, where past Kyon and Asahina Small will be in time stasis in one of the rooms. When they arrive and try to explain their situation to Nagato, her data synchronization fails, as her requests are being rejected. Still though, Nagato understands enough to understand the problem and explains the details of what it is exactly that happened that December 18th. She reveals both the source of the problems as well as a solution. The solution being a weapon that can undo any damage that might be caused, as well as a protective nanomachine barrier for the two of them. Now armed and ready to take on the threat of December 18th, Asahina Big and Kyon prepare themselves to return to their time, leaving behind this July 7th of 3 years ago. Now with all established information in place, the events of this July 7th are finally over. There's still quite a lot of questions that can be asked regarding what exactly happened and what caused such information overload to occur in the first place. Was it the drawing, the completion of the drawing? Was it Kyon's affirmation of Haruhi's interest in aliens, time travelers, espers, and sliders? Was it the meeting with John Smith, the second meeting with John Smith? Was it the collaboration of 3 different entities? No one can say for sure. As you get further into the series and you start reading the surprise, it becomes a little bit more confusing as to what exactly occurred on this date as well. If we believe that the power is something that Haruhi is merely a vessel for, we don't have a full response as to why this July 7th happened to be the genesis of everything. However, these are all events of the past, and I'm sure that as the series progresses, we'll eventually get some of the answers to some of the questions we have. With the past in the past, I want to talk a little bit about the present and look at the wishes that Haruhi made explicitly in her first SOS Brigade Tanabata celebration, those being that the world revolves around her and that the world would rotate in the opposite direction.